Hello and welcome to Ingenium Books live Facebook and YouTube session. Live or on replay. We're not fussy about when you watch or listen and replay or share. We'll take what comes along. I'm Bonnie Wagner Stafford from Ingenium Books, and today I'm with Dina Marie, who is the author of My Fat Pants Don't Fit. Today we're talking about goal setting for writing books. So if you have been wanting to write a book, wondering how to start, how to finish, what's involved, how to, remove roadblocks in your thinking, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Because in Dina's book, she includes 90-day goal setting worksheets and an approach. Now, that approach in her book is specific to self-care initiatives, but it can be applied to the process of writing a book. And in fact, Dina, you used it in the process of writing your book. So thanks very much for joining us again. And maybe we can start with having you tell us how you used the notion of your goal setting approach to help you write your book.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Bonnie. I think for me, I broke it into two different phases. So the first phase was really just the writing of the book, and I would say my goal setting was there, but it wasn't as well ironed out or as beautiful of a template as I had in the second phase. So I thought about it in the writing phase. And then I also thought about it in the kind of the publishing phase, which was a really, has a lot of steps and a lot of processes. And that's where I really started to utilize the template that I have in my book today and get to know utilizing that for the book writing process. But yeah, so it was really broken into two different phases of goal setting.
So let's talk about the two phases separately. So there's in the writing process, can you talk a little bit about how you specifically set those goals and whether you tried to write the book in a chronological order in terms of what you envisioned was the start, then the second chapter and the third one, or did you use goal setting to apply a different kind of a process? I think people might be interested to hear how you did that.
Yeah. So actually, when I started, I didn't even know I was writing a book. And so I was in the book, I have a chapter that I'm going through a breakup, and I was tasked by my therapist to try writing a letter that would never be delivered to this person. And so that's really where the book started. It's in the last part of so the book is divided into three parts, and it's in the last part of the second piece of the book. And the third piece of the book is how you do everything. So it's really the last part of the story. So in doing that, I then backed up and I was like, well, how did I even get to this point of this letter and that I could even do this? And then I started thinking about where would it make sense to even start the book? And then from there, I did not write the book in chronological order nor in chapter order. I tackled the things that came the easiest, that were the fastest to write, maybe the most recent, the things I was most passionate about. There was some struggles some chapters that I struggled with. I got some edit notes back from Bonnie on one of my chapters, and she's like, we need more. And I was like, I gave you everything I have. And so there's some chapters that are, were difficult. And I felt like if I tried to do that, because that was one of the second or third chapters that I was really struggling with. And if I let myself sit at that chapter and say, I can't move on, when I had all this other stuff building up in me that I was so ready to share. So with the goal setting, then I was able to say, okay, these are the things I want to accomplish in an outline form, and then put dates and timelines to keep myself on track, knowing that I had to go back to those harder pieces at some point during the writing phase of the goal setting process.
Okay, that sounds really interesting and valuable in terms of advice that can be taken away from anybody out there that is either in the middle of trying or wanting to write a book. And that is to be aware of the thinking traps that you must write in a particular order. There is no right way. And writing in order might work for you, but to pay attention to what is going to work for you, and don't let preconceived notions about what that process should look like get in the way of you continuing to write. Yeah.
I think
so. Sorry, just
times,
quickly.
Oh yeah.
I was just going to say, we'd love to, anybody either listening, watching live, or on the replay, you can put questions in the comments. And even if it's on the replay, we will see those questions or comments and we'll be able to respond. So if anything that we're discussing or that we mentioned triggers a question for you, we'd be totally open to hearing from you. And then I'm just going to post, while you're commenting, I'm just going to post in the comments the link to where people can find your book if they are interested in that. So, all right, sorry to interrupt you. Carry on. You were saying.
No, I think one of the things for me about writing in this non-chronological way, I would notice too that when I would dive into chapters, it would trigger memories or emotions or things that would come up in the other chapters that I was getting stuck on. So sometimes if you feel like you have to write that way because you're going to lose pieces of the story, I feel like it actually enhanced my story, because I would start thinking about a scenario, because obviously with this being based on my life, I would think about a scenario and then I'd be like, oh, but then this happened to get me to that place, and let me go back and add that to that chapter. So I jumped around a lot. And to me, I feel like it brought more life to the story.
Yeah, that makes sense too. So now I have a sample of one of the goal setting sheets that we have included in your book. It's pretty small on my screen, but so can you talk to us about what this goal setting sheet is? And of course, again, reiterating that this goal setting sheet is targeted and focused around self-care, health, and wellness issues, because that's really the focus of your book. But you can use this, and you did use this in the process of writing your book. And then once you talk me through what's on the sheet and how people would use it, especially if they're writing a book or wanting to, then we're going to move to how you use the goal setting process for the second part of the process of, so writing is one phase, everything else that comes after is quite another. So yeah, we're seeing on the screen here a sample of the sheet.
Yeah. So I would love to say that this was the sheet that I always used. I think my original goal setting was like Post-it notes on a wall, and I realized like that wasn't working. And so I think even because of the writing process, the goal sample sheet got enhanced more. But in the book, I believe that there's 5 areas of our life that cause the most stress, but when done successfully, they can cause the most amount of happiness. And so I feel like you could apply that principle to anything in your career, in your writing. So for me, I like to work backwards in my goals. So the main box at the top is kind of your end goal. And in the book, and in my life, I do everything in 90-day segments. It was very much the same for the book writing process and things I needed to do with that. It helps me control, because it's, 30 days can seem really short to get things done. And there might be tasks that you have to get done, but to finish something in 30 days and then a year, a whole year could go by and it could just seem so overwhelming. So I like to put at the very top, that longer box. I like to think about what's the main goal I want to complete by the end of the 90 days. So I kind of work backwards in that sense. And then each block is for 1 week. And I never schedule out details more than 2 weeks in advance. So I may have an idea maybe in week 1 of what I want to do in weeks 3, 4, 5, and 6, but I do not pigeonhole myself to details, because things can change. You could be moving faster. You could be moving slower. So I like to have an idea of my plan for all 12 weeks, but giving myself grace, like if something came up and I'm behind a little bit, or if I'm doing well and I'm ahead. So when you utilize the sheet, making sure that it's fluid, making sure, one of the tips that I have is I actually like to keep mine in a frame. Right now I just have it on paper, but I've done it before where it's on a frame where I use dry erase marker, and it, when it sits behind the glass, it becomes dry erase, and then I can update and change or cross things out and don't feel like I'm so stuck. Cause I feel like that's what happens, right? Like we set a goal and then it's like, oh, I didn't make it, so I'm just going to give up on everything. We're just done. Let's just quit. I didn't meet my second goal or whatever. So yeah. So then when we moved to the publishing side, by my own choice, I had very aggressive publishing goals that Bonnie was a trooper and was all on board with. And
that's me.
Yes. she's been my right hand, and we got our editor Rachel Small involved and keeping us on track. So this is where I started to use this real goal sheet, and there was a lot of things happening very quickly and moving constantly. I think there was a lot of opportunities for things to get lost, things to get missed, things to get overlooked, or things to get stressed about if I didn't have this goal sheet. So I had weekly goals that I owed Bonnie every week, and I had edits and stuff like that. We had a very quick turnaround from the first edit of the manuscript to the, not the final draft, but kind of like the big final right before the final draft. So by utilizing this, I was able to check those boxes, move things around.
Right. And we kind of I remember this as like, you thought, okay, here's my manuscript. I'm ready to go. You tell me what needs to be done. And we're like, there's another 30% that needs to be written here. It's like,
Yeah, I got I think that's interesting. So I think that's a really good point. So many people have reached out to me and said, it's a goal of mine to write a book. It's this to write a book. And I mean, I thought it was pretty much done. and I was so happy that I had people who cared for something to be such good quality that they challenged me, because now I read it and I'm like, I couldn't imagine the book without that sentence or without that part. And so if you don't have a publisher, or you haven't found one yet, or you're not working with somebody, find somebody to like hold you accountable and read your things, because read your chapters and stuff. Because when I turned it into Bonnie and I was like, I'm good, I'm done, they challenged me to write, I'd say at least 30% more, if not even a little bit more. And I had a pretty aggressive timeline to do that. But if I wouldn't have had somebody to hold me accountable, I wouldn't have had anything to track on my goal sheets. I wouldn't have had anything to turn in. And so I think it's really important to have that accountability person in your life.
Right. And you had an aggressive timeline. You had a very clear idea of when you wanted to publish. And this was we began this before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And you're working a full-time job. You're a talent acquisition leader. So it's not like you were going, oh, I'm at home. My whole day can be devoted to writing this book. So how did the goal setting process help you manage both workloads?
So I'd even like to say I probably had a third workload in there, because I run. And, I was training for different races, and I had joined some run organizations and things like that. And so that was kind of the third part, is my health. And so I was writing this book, I was working full time, and I was making sure to get all my my health and fitness goals in, which can be, time consuming and things like that. So for me, I had to be really strategic about when I wrote and how I wrote. Not for everybody, I have to have noise when I write. I don't like silence, and I like energy and movement. And so I know things are a little bit limited right now because of COVID and what's open and stuff, but I love to like sit at a Starbucks and write. I could sit at Starbucks for 3 straight hours and produce a ton of work versus just sitting on my couch. So now I have apps that make noise to try to make it feel like there's noise in my apartment. But being really strategic about it. So what I would do is I would set my goals every Sunday for the following Monday. You can pick any day of the week. And I would write down like maybe, I never put pages because I didn't feel like we were concerned with how long the book was. We had a story that we wanted to share. So I would put topics and I would put outlines of what needed to be tackled that week, and then give myself grace if I was hitting a wall and I needed to move things around.
That is another very important point, which is to understand both the drivers and the inhibitors for your own personal writing style. So I'm like you. I spent much of my career working in newsrooms, lots of noise, police scanners, people hollering, running down the hallway, no offices, no cubicles, just a desk. Right, the next reporter was 4 feet away from me. And so I found that I actually function the best as well with stuff going on around me, but not everybody's like that. And so recognizing where you can be the most productive and comfortable and fitting into your goal setting process for writing your book, how you're going to create that environment one way or another. Okay. Let's talk now. We've got a couple of things that we're announcing today, and this speaks to a number of ways that once the book is written, that you can both use the book to benefit the broader community. So we're going to talk about 3 things. You've just launched an initiative, we'll save till the end, but Curvy Girl Run Club. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then you're also launching 2 new free webinars. So I mentioned earlier that you're a talent acquisition leader, which means that you've got pretty deep knowledge of career development, hiring, how people transition from one job to another. And next Tuesday, is the first webinar. I'm going to post a link here as I'm talking. A webinar about how to use self-care goal setting to help you achieve that next career move. So many people might think that those 2 initiatives are totally separate. Oh, there's self-care and then there's my career and there's my work. Well, so this free webinar is going to focus on that. I'm going to get you to hold that thought for a moment. And then the next one, 2 weeks from yesterday, I forget, I'll find the date, is another one focused specifically on health and wellness and the goal setting process that is included in your book. So I'll get a link to that. So while I'm looking for that link and posting that link, tell me first a little bit more about that career goal setting, self-care goal setting to help you with your career goal. What are the things that you're going to talk about in that webinar?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, there's 5 things in our life that can cause the most stress and can create the most happiness. And self-care or self-love is one of them, but also your career. And for a lot of us, whether our careers were affected because of COVID, or we are looking to start something new, or maybe we've been in a field for 10 years and we want to just try a whole new industry or a whole new career. How do we do that? And I think the misconception about health and wellness and self-care is like, self-care is just getting manicures and having facials. And that's not the case. There's a lot of mental pieces and, things that you mentally and emotionally go through. Being on the talent acquisition side for over 10 years, I've interviewed thousands of people. And I mean, it's to the point, like I've interviewed people who were shaking. They were so nervous. And so really how we can utilize some of those self-care and self-love techniques to prepare for interviews, to calm down, to manage the process, to understand that while it's very personal to you, sometimes you don't get a response back, which is like my biggest pet peeve in the world, that you don't get a response back. And so how do you manage that sort of rejection, all while maintaining a good, positive, emotional self-love through this process? Because going to a new role should be exciting, regardless of the reasons that are bringing you there. Sometimes being laid off is just an opportunity to push you for something you might not have done before. So this webinar will give us kind of that background on how to be able to do all of those pieces, and hopefully end up with something that you're really happy with at the end, in your career.
Perfect. And the second webinar in 2 weeks' time is, as we said, a little bit more general. And I keep forgetting to switch the screen back so we can both be seen. And apologies off the top. I was flipping around. What? How do I? Anyway. So the second webinar in 2 weeks from the time of this live and this recording is the goal setting for self-care writ large, with a more focus on health and wellness. So tell me a little bit and tell us a little bit more about that one.
Yeah. So one of the things I talk about in the book is I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a physical therapist. I am a woman who has suffered with health and wellness. I'm 38 years old and I've suffered with it for almost 20 years. So even though I'm in a great place now, there are still so many things that I have to work on day to day. I can't just rest. I was having issues and I found out that my vitamin D was really low. And so I'm writing this whole blog post about it because, I could have just said, oh, I'm just tired, or, oh, this. So with the self-care and the wellness pieces, how do we identify like what's going on with us? What should be going on with us? What do we want going on with us? I'm in better shape. I'm healthier and mentally, physically, and emotionally at 38 than I was in my 20s, when I probably should have been at my best. But so this is going to talk about all those pieces, self-love, health and fitness, and a little bit about like how you can start your goal setting. You don't need to get off the couch and run a marathon. How do you start using that 90 days to start building the framework to, keep going up to bigger goals?
Right. And sometimes it's about what can we do? Are we not doing the right things? And sometimes it's about identifying where you need to pay attention and where you need to get some extra help. So It's not all, beat myself up because I'm not paying attention to my self-care, nor is it all about somebody else has to help me with this. So it's, finding that balance. I'm really looking forward to each of those webinars. It's going to be my partner, John, who's going to moderate that with you. The links have been provided in the comments. We've had them on the screen, so you can sign up for those limited number of spaces. But I think they'll be very, very interesting and rewarding. So if you're interested in focusing on a career move, or if you're interested in getting some help focusing on health and wellness, self-care writ large, you can sign up for either one or both of those. Both. Yeah, sure, that's fine. So the next thing, and it's the book. Your book isn't really only about self-care goal setting.
No.
Your book is about so much more than that. Yes. But your book is providing the platform for you to identify, oh, I can help more people. So I think that's kind of a cool thing. And then, so taking that another step further, Curvy Girl Run Club.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So it's a new initiative that I'm working on. I'm still getting some things in place. We're, of course, going to follow the 90-day goal tracking. So we'll be starting our first group in October. And, obviously things are up in the air with COVID. So we're going to be looking at offering an all virtual group and then a hybrid virtual in-person group as well. So the all virtual gives you an opportunity wherever you're located to run with us. But a lot of what I talk about in the book is before all this self-love, I had so much self-hate. And for a long time, I don't know if I even realized that I had self-hate. I just kind of thought I was unhappy or different things like that. And so in the book, I talk about, I was very overweight. I've lost a lot of weight, and a lot of that has come through running. And I haven't always loved running. It's sometimes been a chore, but lately it's been more of a mental and physical release for me and helping me feel better. But I know what it's like to be the largest person in the yoga class or the run group or the spin bike, or I know how much courage it takes sometimes to get up and go to those. I joined a cycling group whose name implied that they were slow, and they dropped me on the first hill and I had no idea where I was. So very defeated, I went back to my car, put my bike on it and cried and went home. And, I feel like that's sometimes what can happen. So I wanted to create a place where women felt safe. They never felt judged. They always felt welcome, judged, not always not judged, but loved. And where we would lift and inspire each other. And I'm hoping to do that through the movement of Curvy Girl Run Club.
So the key connection here is obviously it's, thinking for people who are interested in writing a book, that there are ways that you can use the book once it's finished yes. to help more people that you might not, you probably didn't conceive of any of these things when you were even in the process of writing the book. So that's something to keep in mind. But I want to make the connection to this Curvy Girl Run Club is actually about more than helping other people connect. It's about you feeding a driving need that you have for connection. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm a social butterfly. So I know we've all had our different things. COVID has been insanely hard for me. Part of the reason I'm in recruiting is because I love talking to people and being around people. Why I wrote my book at Starbucks was because I love the noise and the energy of people. So while it is a community, it's also for me. I am not the fastest runner. I inspired to be faster. I work hard at it, but I don't think I'll ever be a 6-minute miler. That's might as well drive in the car at that pace. But for me, it was really that connection with people. I recently had somebody who, through sharing about the Run Club, sharing about the book, I'm constantly sharing, somebody who reached out that they felt connected. They were reading the book at the pool and I had no idea who this person was. And so, it's like, it's a way to continue to help me stay on track, keep my goal setting going, hold me accountable when I have all these people who are cheering me on as well.
Awesome. Fantastic. Exciting. Fun. We are just about out of our time. So to wrap up quickly. So this is on this video is on Facebook and YouTube. We encourage, if you found interest or value in it, please share it on any of your platforms, and whether you're watching live or you're watching on the replay. And any comments or questions, we'll keep an eye on it whether or not you're watching on the replay, so don't be shy. And then in the comments, there's a whole bunch of links there because we've talked about a whole bunch of things. But free webinar available for sign up, your next career move, and that's all about how focusing on self-care can help you in your next career move. And then another webinar, goal setting for self-care, how using the goal setting sheets in My Fat Pants Don't Fit can help. And then of course, earlier on in the trail, I did post a link to where people can get the book. I'm just going to put that up on the screen right now. And so that's a universal link. So regardless of where you're looking for where you're looking, it will take you to the right Amazon store. The book is available wherever you buy your books, not just Amazon, but it is a really good, fun read. I can say that. Of course, I'm a little biased because I believe in the book and having been intimately involved in the publishing, but it's a good, fun read. And as you've been listening to Dina talk, that's how she writes. So you can hear the personality in her voice. It's really a very nice read. So encourage you to do that. And then if you're in the Raleigh-Durham area of the United States, the Curvy Girl Run Club, check it out. And I
Yeah.
had posted the link to your site, Just Me, Dina Marie, where they can find out more information about both the in-person and then the virtual. And you'll have more news coming up about that. So
Yes.
I thank you very much, Dina, for
Thank
taking
you.
time out of your day with your lovely new purple hair, pink hair, purple hair. It's fantastic. And we will sign off for now. And thanks to those watching for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.